Introduction. Bigfoot Destroys Town. That was the title of an article I received not long after the Mount Rainier eruption. I thought it was spam, the inevitable result of so much online research. At the time, I was just finishing up what seemed like my 100th op-ed on Rainier, analyzing every facet of what should have been a predictable and preventable calamity. Like the rest of the country, I needed facts, not sensationalism. Staying grounded had been the focus of so many op-eds because of all Rainier's human failures. Political, economic, logistical. It was the psychological aspect, the hyperbole-fueled hysteria that had ended up killing the most people. And here it was again, right on my laptop screen. Bigfoot destroys town. Just forget it, I told myself. The world's not going to change overnight. Just breathe, delete, and move on. And I almost did, except for that one word. Bigfoot. The article, posted on an obscure cryptozoological website, claimed that while the rest of the country was focused on Rainier's wrath, a smaller but no less bloody disaster was occurring a few miles away in the isolated, high-end, high-tech eco-community of Greenloop. The article's author, Frank McCrae, described how the eruption not only cut Greenloop off from rescue, but also left it vulnerable to a troop of hungry, ape-like creatures that were themselves fleeing the same catastrophe. The details of the siege were recorded in the journal of Greenloop resident Kate Holland, the sister of Frank McCrae. They never found her body, McCrae wrote to me in a follow-up email. But if you can get her journal published, maybe someone will read it who might have seen her. When I asked why me, he responded, because I've been following your op-eds on Rainier. You don't write anything you haven't thoroughly researched first. When I asked why he thought I'd have any interest in Bigfoot, he answered, I read your Fangoria article. Clearly, I wasn't the only one who knew how to research a subject. Somehow, McCrae had tracked down a decades-old list of my top 5 classic Bigfoot movies for the iconic horror magazine. In that piece, I talked about growing up at the height of the Bigfoot frenzy, challenging readers to watch these old movies with the eyes of a 6-year-old child, eyes that flick constantly from the terror on the screen to the dark, rustling trees outside the window. Reading that piece must have convinced McCrae that some part of me wasn't quite ready to leave my childhood obsession in the past. He must have also known that my adult skepticism would force me to thoroughly vet his story, which I did. Before contacting McCrae again, I discovered that there had been a highly publicized community known as Greenloop. There was an ample amount of press regarding its founding and its founder, Tony Durant. Tony's wife Yvette had also hosted several online yoga and meditation classes from the town's common house right up to the day of the eruption. But on that day, everything stopped. That was not unusual for towns that lay in the path of Rainier's boiling mudslides, but a quick check of the official FEMA map showed Greenloop had never been touched. And while devastated areas such as Ording and Puyallup had eventually reconnected their digital footprints, Greenloop remained a black hole. There were no press reports, no amateur recordings, nothing. Even Google Earth, which has been so diligent in updating its satellite imagery of the area, still posts the original pre-eruption photo of Greenloop and the surrounding area. As peculiar as all these red flags might be, what finally drove me back to McCrae was the fact that the only mention of Greenloop after the disaster that I could find was in a local police report that said the official investigation was still ongoing. "What do you know?" I asked him after several days of radio silence. That was when he sent me the link to an airdrop link of a photo album taken by Senior Ranger Josephine Schell. Schell, who I would later interview for this project, had led the first search and rescue team into the charred wreckage of what had once been Greenloop. Amid the corpses and debris, she had discovered the journal of Kate Holland, née McCrae, and had photographed each page before the original copy was removed. At first, I still suspected a hoax. I'm old enough to remember the notorious Hitler diaries. However, as I finished the last page, I couldn't help but believe her story. I still do. Perhaps it's the simplicity of her writing, the frustratingly credible ignorance of all things Sasquatch, or perhaps it's just my own irrational desire to exonerate the scared little boy I used to be.